Did you know that 40% of seniors in America experience profound loneliness? Perhaps you're one of them, sitting in your quiet home, wondering if this is all life has left to offer. Remember when each morning held promise, when every day felt like an opportunity rather than just another routine. Meet James, a 70-year-old retired teacher from Boston who asked himself these same questions. Sitting in his silent kitchen one morning, staring at his untouched coffee, he wondered, "Is this all there is?" Little did he know, his life was about to change in ways he never imagined. Before we share James's extraordinary journey of transformation, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. If you've ever felt stuck in life's routine, share your story in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Now, let's step into James's world and discover how one unexpected encounter changed everything. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., James would find himself staring at the ceiling of his Boston suburban home, dreading the endless hours that lay ahead. The silence in his house seemed to grow louder each day, broken only by the monotonous hum of the TV, his constant companion since Mary's passing 3 years ago. The hardest part wasn't the physical aches, James would later recall, his voice heavy with emotion. It was looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person I'd become. The passionate educator who once lit up classrooms with his energy had faded into a shadow, shuffling between his recliner and the kitchen, subsisting on microwave dinners and coffee that had long gone cold. His children, successful and busy with their own lives, would call occasionally. "How are you, Dad?" they'd ask. "Fine, just fine," became his automatic response, masking the growing emptiness inside. The truth was far from fine. Each unanswered dinner invitation, each declined family gathering, added another brick to the wall of isolation he'd built around himself. The physical pains, the creaking knees, the stiff back, he dismissed as just part of aging. But it was the invisible aches that cut deeper, the fear of becoming a burden, the shame of asking for help, the crushing weight of pride that kept him from admitting he was struggling. His doctor's appointments became exercises in minimization. "Everything's normal for your age," they'd say, and James would nod, relieved to avoid deeper conversations about his growing depression and isolation. His Medicare card remained largely unused, a symbol of his reluctance to acknowledge his declining health. Each night, as he settled into his worn armchair, the TV flickering in the darkness, James would glance at Mary's photo on the mantel. "I'm too old to start over," he'd tell himself, the words becoming a mantra that justified his retreat from life. This is just how it is now. But life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it, and for James, that surprise was waiting on a park bench, one crisp autumn morning. That morning started like any other, but fate had different plans. That crisp autumn morning began like any other. James sat on his usual bench in Boston Common, more out of habit than desire, watching joggers and young families pass by, life happening around him but never touching him. Until Sarah. She appeared suddenly, pausing her morning walk to catch her breath near his bench. At 68, she radiated an energy that seemed to defy time itself. Silver hair cropped stylishly short, workout clothes that spoke of someone embracing life rather than retreating from it. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her warm smile reaching her eyes. "This bench has the best view of the sunrise in all of Boston." James nodded, surprised by her directness. For the first time in years, someone wasn't treating him like he was invisible or fragile. "You know," Sarah said, breaking the awkward silence, "I used to sit on this very bench 3 years ago, feeling like life had passed me by." She turned to face him, her expression understanding but challenging. "Then I realized something that changed everything. Our story doesn't end until we decide it does." James felt a strange stirring in his chest, recognition perhaps, or the first spark of hope he'd felt in years. "How did you—" he started, then stopped, unsure how to continue. "How did I turn it around?" Sarah finished for him. "Small steps, James. That's all it takes. Small steps and the courage to believe we deserve more than just existing." Their conversation flowed naturally, touching on shared experiences of loss, the fear of change, the comfort of familiar routines, even when those routines were slowly dimming their light. "Have you ever noticed," Sarah said, her voice gentle but firm, "how we often use age as an excuse to stop living? I did that too, until I realized that every sunrise is an invitation to begin again." Something shifted in James that morning. Whether it was Sarah's words or her living example of vitality, a long dormant part of him began to stir. Yet doubt lingered. "I wouldn't know where to start," he admitted, voicing his deepest fear. Sarah's response would become his first step toward transformation. "How about we start with coffee?" That coffee conversation would become the catalyst for a journey James never imagined possible. That first coffee meeting turned into a weekly ritual, each conversation planting seeds of transformation in James's life. Sarah, with her gentle persistence, helped him see that change didn't require grand gestures. It began with small, deliberate choices. "Start with 5 minutes," she suggested one morning, stirring her herbal tea. 5 minutes of stretching when you wake up, instead of lying there dreading the day." Her practical wisdom cut through his excuses about being too old or too stiff. "Your body is like a garden, James. Neglect it, and it withers. Tend to it, even just a little, and it flourishes." James began his transformation in those 5-minute increments. The first morning, his joints protested as he attempted simple stretches Sarah had demonstrated. But each day brought small victories. Touching his toes became easier, morning stiffness lessened, and most surprisingly, his mind felt clearer. "The body and mind are connected," Sarah explained during their park walks, which had now become part of his routine. "When we move with purpose, we think with purpose." His first Medicare wellness visit in years revealed the physical toll of his isolation. But instead of shame, James felt empowered. His doctor, impressed by his new initiative, helped create a senior-friendly wellness plan. "This isn't about becoming an athlete," she assured him. "It's about reclaiming your vitality." The changes in his diet began simply too. Sarah introduced him to the local farmers market, where they would spend Saturday mornings choosing colorful vegetables and fresh fruits. "Remember," she'd say, picking up a bright red apple, "every meal is a chance to nourish yourself." His kitchen, once filled with frozen dinners and instant coffee, slowly transformed. The microwave gathered dust as James learned to prepare simple, nutritious meals. His morning routine evolved from stale toast to oatmeal with berries, his body responding with renewed energy. The most profound changes, however, were invisible. Mindfulness moments, another of Sarah's suggestions, became anchors throughout his day. "Just pause," she'd taught him, "and notice 3 things: something you see, something you hear, something you feel. It brings you back to the present." Small victories accumulated, sleeping through the night without anxiety, waking up looking forward to the day, feeling his clothes fit differently as his posture improved. Even his children noticed the change during their phone calls. "Dad, you sound different," his daughter remarked one evening. "Happier." One morning, catching his reflection while stretching, James realized he no longer avoided mirrors. The man looking back at him had a spark in his eyes, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. It wasn't just his body changing, his spirit was awakening. As James's personal transformation deepened, he discovered that change had a way of creating ripples far beyond himself. As weeks turned into months, James's transformation began gathering momentum like a quiet avalanche. The physical changes were undeniable. His doctor marveled at his improved blood pressure readings. His posture had straightened, and the constant fatigue that once clouded his days had lifted like morning fog. But it was the internal transformation that truly astounded him. One Sunday morning, standing in his kitchen preparing a healthy breakfast before his morning walk, James caught himself humming, something he hadn't done since Mary passed. The realization brought tears to his eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude. "You know what I've learned?" he shared with Sarah during their now regular walks. "It's not just about the exercises or the healthy food. It's about feeling alive again, feeling like I matter." His relationship with his family underwent its own renaissance. Instead of deflecting their calls, he began initiating them. His daughter Julie was the first to notice the shift. "Dad, would you like to come over for dinner this weekend?" she asked tentatively, expecting the usual decline. "Actually," he replied, surprising them both, "why don't you bring the kids here? I've been learning to make a mean vegetable lasagna." That dinner became a turning point. His grandchildren, instead of seeing a distant figure in an armchair, discovered a grandfather who could teach them stretching games and tell stories with energy and enthusiasm. His son-in-law remarked, "It's like you found your second wind, James." At Sarah's encouragement, James ventured to the local community center. What started as a tentative visit to the senior wellness class evolved into regular attendance. There, he found others on similar journeys, each with their own stories of renewal. "Share your story," Sarah urged him one day. "Others need to hear it." Initially reluctant, James began opening up to his classmates. He spoke about his struggles with isolation, the fear of change, and the simple steps that had led to his transformation. To his amazement, people listened. They nodded in recognition. They asked questions. "I never thought I'd be here," he confided to Sarah one afternoon, watching the sunset from their park bench. "Not just physically, but mentally. I feel purposeful again." Sarah smiled, her eyes twinkling with knowing pride. "And this," she said, "is just the beginning." Little did James know that his personal journey was about to inspire a movement within his community. What began as one man's journey of renewal soon rippled outward, touching lives throughout his Boston community. James's morning walks, once a solitary pursuit, evolved into an informal walking group. The Sunrise Striders, they called themselves, a growing collection of seniors who gathered at dawn, not just for exercise, but for connection. "You know what amazes me?" James shared with his walking companions one morning. "A few months ago, I couldn't imagine leaving my armchair. Now here I am, leading a walking group." His authenticity in sharing his struggles and triumphs resonated deeply with others facing similar challenges. The community center director noticed the change James had sparked. "Would you consider leading a weekly discussion group?" she asked. "Your story could help others see what's possible." Though initially hesitant, James accepted. His New Beginnings at Any Age sessions quickly became popular, drawing participants from across the city. He shared his simple strategies, the 5-minute morning stretches, mindful eating habits, the importance of social connections, but more importantly, he shared his vulnerability. "I'm not an expert," he would begin each session. "I'm just someone who discovered it's never too late to start living again." His honesty drew people in, creating a safe space for others to share their own fears and hopes. The intergenerational connections proved especially powerful. Younger family members of participants started attending, eager to understand and support their aging loved ones. James found himself bridging generations, helping families reconnect through understanding and shared purpose. Sarah, who continued to attend his sessions, beamed with pride. "See what happens when one person decides to change," she whispered during one particularly moving session. "It creates a cascade of possibility for others." As James watched his influence grow, he began to understand that his transformation was creating something even more meaningful, a lasting legacy. On his 71st birthday, surrounded by family, friends, and members of his walking group, James received an unexpected gift, a leather-bound journal filled with handwritten stories from people whose lives he'd touched. "Your courage to change gave me courage," wrote a retired nurse who joined the Sunrise Striders. You showed me that my story wasn't over." Reading these testimonials, James realized his transformation had created ripples he never imagined possible. His journey had become more than personal renewal. It was now a blueprint of hope for others. Inspired, he began documenting his experiences, not just the triumphs, but the struggles too. "Real change," he wrote, "isn't about dramatic transformations. It's about showing up each day, making one small choice at a time, even when it feels impossible." His grandson helped him create short videos for the community center's website, sharing simple wellness tips and encouragement. These Wisdom with James segments became popular among seniors and their families across Boston, offering practical advice wrapped in genuine understanding. "Your greatest legacy," Sarah told him one morning, "isn't just in what you've achieved, but in showing others what's possible." As we conclude James's story, let's consider how his journey might inspire your own. As you've journeyed with James, perhaps you've seen reflections of your own story. Maybe you're sitting in that same quiet room, feeling that same hesitation about taking the first step. Remember, transformation doesn't require grand gestures. It begins with one small choice, one moment of courage. What will your first step be? Perhaps it's a 5-minute morning stretch, a walk around the block, or simply reaching out to someone who might understand. Your journey, like James's, could inspire others in ways you never imagined. If this story has touched you, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words might be the very encouragement someone else needs to hear today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of renewal and transformation. Remember James's words, "It's never too late to begin again." Every sunrise is an invitation to start living. The question isn't whether you can change, it's whether you're ready to take that first step. Are you?